Thank you so much for being here tonight. You might have guessed that we're going to be talking about the Diamond District, which sits at the intersection of sports, public finance, live entertainment, restaurants, etc. And let's start off with as mayor, what is your role in that and what isn't?
With the Diamond District specifically?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is like a huge area of focus of growth for the city. And, it was my predecessor in city council that really helped put all of the pieces together to actually get agreements signed, figure out what that 62 acres was gonna look like. And then I came in a year ago, and my job now is to shepherd it to completion. Because while there was a vision and some kind of initial agreements, there's still a lot that has to get worked out. I will give one very clear example that has been the news of late, which was there wasn't really a plan to figure out how to pay for the sports backer stadium sale, right? Because one of the things that had to happen was VCU's stadium had to be sold to us so that we could raise it and build a road through it. And yeah, some of those details just hadn't been worked up. And so we figured out the most efficient way to pay for that stadium was to basically take a loan from ourselves, to take a loan from our reserves, pay off the stadium, and then in the next phase of the Diamond development deal, the money that's transacted in that would then pay ourselves back. So, a loan from ourselves for a few years. But it's that kind of stuff, right? Contracts that need to be signed, figuring out how things will be financed, making sure that all the partners at the table are staying at the table, and sometimes that's going great, and sometimes it's not.
And what's kind of complicated, especially for a city like Richmond, to kind of push through a project like this? Has there been anything that's surprised you?
I think the dynamics of this particular deal, where you have a stadium that is owned by the city, right? That's owned by the Economic Development Authority, that is being built by the actual baseball team, and then a bunch of development around it that is being developed by another developer, by Tallheimer. And so, kind of the interface and the work of, so one example would be the baseball stadium has a row of retail that fronts to what's now called J Street. I don't know what we'll eventually call it, but that row of retail, it's part of the stadium in many ways, and it's being developed by two different partners. And so, you've got a lot to work out in terms of what's the vision, how is it going to come together, where do the easements need to be. So trying to be a kind of shepherd, mediator, and really keep everybody moving in the same direction to say, hey, this thing will be awesome. We all need to be rowing in the same direction. So that's one of the surprising things, that a lot of the details of how that vision would come to fruition were really left pretty open.
Yeah, and you've described the city as the landlord and the team as the tenant. What has to go right for that $3.2 million annual rent model to work?
What has to go right? I think as long as the baseball team, the Squirrels, have agreed to pay $3.2 million a year, and they've done really well. I mean, it's not, they're some years we have good years and some years we don't, but attendance is always great. And I think the Squirrels have just done a really great job tapping into fun, family connection. Our corporate community are incredible sponsors and supporters of the team. And so, the work that they've done over the years has really built a huge fan base here. And there's no reason that should only grow. I mean, the new stadium, if anybody has driven by it, it is a gorgeous, gorgeous facility. And then, you think down 5 to 10 years about the development that's going to happen around it, hotels, housing, new retail space, park space. It will be a really attractive place to be. And so I think a lot of the things that have to go well are the team has to continue to, have a fan base and have supporters here in Richmond. And the development has to come up around it to be the kind of place that people want to be, want to spend money, want to stay after the game. And then I think there's one other piece of this, which is that baseball is one part of what's going to happen there, right? You know, the Navigators, who are the team that own and operate the Squirrels, they've got a lot of different ideas about what to use Carmax Park for on all of the days that it's not hosting baseball teams, right? And so that's concerts, that's weddings, that's conferences. And so as they really think differently about their revenue model, I mean, those are some of the pieces that have to come together to keep that money flowing our way.
And let's say, hypothetically speaking, the rent model ends up not working. You know, who ultimately bears that risk?
Well, you know, the bonds that we've put out as a city to pay for the stadium are backed by the public, right? And there was a lot of controversy around this. This was before I got here, but it was a big topic of conversation in like 2023 and 2024, right? Does the use of public money on a stadium, and in this case, a minor league baseball stadium, make sense? And I'm not here to judge that, but the reality is that like that was decided, right? City Council decided it did make sense and made the decision to put, I think, $120 million in total into building that stadium. And the financial model was that would then be covered by the rent that would come in, and then some portion of the real estate tax that would surround that area. So there's a kind of a tax assessed district that will help fuel that. So, you know, I mean, I think everything points to successful baseball in the stadium or in the city. And then as the development comes up around it, like as long as development is moving forward, as long as tenants are coming on board, as long as people are moving into those apartments, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape.
And the lease gives the Navigators, you know, Flying Squirrels' parent company, exclusive management of the stadium. Did the city give up too much leverage over how this publicly financed venue is used?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes back to partnership, right? I mean, we aren't in the business of managing large facilities. And so even though we own it, we were happy to come to partner with the Navigators and have them be the ones driving the operations of the facility. It's what they know how to do, right? They know how to run concessions. They know how to run a sports team. They're going to be learning how to create new revenue streams. So yeah, did the city give up too much leverage? I mean, maybe the agreement could have had a little bit of a carve out for what, you know, maybe like a certain number of events that the city controls. But I think it's cleaner that you have one entity that's really running the operation, and if we want to do something there, we work it out with them and say, hey, we'd love to run a conference here, and we'll pay the going rate to do it. So I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think the important part is that like we used our bonding authority to be able to finance this thing, and we did the math and figured that there was a financial model between the baseball team and everything that's happening around there to fuel that for the next 20 to 30 years.
And you just touched on something I'm curious about. You know, if you had been mayor when this deal had happened, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the conversation over the last 20 years, right? Because the diamond is old, and this has been, like, the city's been trying to do this for 2 decades. And there have been different points over the last 20 years where different financing models have been entertained, right? I mean, I think people really see the Squirrels as not just the city's baseball team, but Richmond, the region's baseball team. And there have been different points where regional partners have said, hey, we will be part of the solution, we will co-invest to make this happen. So I think if I had started from scratch, I would be much more interested in how is the region as a whole benefiting from this, and how do we have a joint and collective stake in what's being built. Now, I don't know if that where we're at is much worse, right? Like, I think it means that the city just bears more of the risk in that. But if you already look at what's happening in the Diamond District, right around the Diamond District, across the street in Scott's Addition, like, I think it was a pretty good bet, right? It would take some pretty unique circumstances for this thing to totally peter out. So I'm not worried at all, but I think I'm just a regional guy. So much of the way that I've come to this job and the jobs that I've had before this are bringing the region together and us having not only a shared sense of identity, but also a shared financial stake in the things that we do. that I would have approached it with that at the forefront.
So just to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, you maybe would have done a little few things different, but you still would have made the investment.
Yeah, I think sports are important to the culture of a community, right? I mean, I think the energy that the Squirrels create for this region, because we've got the Kickers and we've got the Ivy now, which are such a great, hopefully you guys have gone to an Ivy game. It is such a great vibe. And so, I think that sports do play a really important kind of cultural role in a community. Obviously, sports tourism is sort of a different entity of where, the counties and the city to some degree. We actually just hosted, what was it, the U19 Field Hockey National Championships at the Convention Center this past weekend. And so I remember cruising through there and just seeing everybody walking around with their field hockey sticks. But so there's a lot of sports tourism happening in the city and throughout the region. And I do think that's a big economic driver for regions like ours. But I think the role of a team and fandom is really important for a sense of identity, for a sense of connection. And again, I think this is where the Squirrels have just done so well, right? For a AA team to have the attendance records that they've had, to fare as well as they do across the MLB, like it's a real value add for our community. And I think, I would have absolutely worked to figure out how do we keep the team here and make sure that the region still has a team to root for.
Yeah, and talking a little bit about kind of how this has been happening across the country, just cities are rethinking how or whether to invest public dollars into sports infrastructure. Do you think that the Diamond District kind of represents the future of that model, or maybe one of the last versions of it? That's something that a lot of cities have been kind of battling over.
Yeah, I think as long as sports is the moneymaker that it is, it's going to continue to draw the interest in municipalities actually investing in it, right? And obviously that's an easier argument to make at the professional level, right? You just think about what happened 2 or 3 years ago up in DC, right? Virginia made a huge play to try to pull the Wizards and the Caps to Alexandria, which would have been a massive win for the state, right? I think we're the most populous state that does not have a professional team operating in it. But it would have taken a lot of public dollar, a lot of public incentive for that to happen. And DC came back with at least a $500 million investment. It's probably been significantly more than that. But the fact that cities are willing to put that kind of money, says something about the economic activity that a sports team generates and kind of the cultural cohesion that a sports team generates. So I think it will continue to be the case, and some cities are going to be winners and losers depending if they, maybe attract a team that isn't as well run or doesn't demand as much or doesn't drive an economic model as well. But I don't know. The other sort of relevant example I think about was the move of the Sonics from Seattle to OKC, the NBA team there. And, I think Seattle is still reeling from that. They're still trying to make a play now to build a new stadium and get the NBA to expand and add a new team. So I think the money, certainly at that level, works. And for us, in the absence of other professional sports, I think this is the best thing we've got going.
And just one last question for the road. When you think of the Diamond District 5 years from now, what's the thing you're most excited for? What'll tell Richmonders that it worked?
Yeah. I just love the idea. So the coolest part of this job is the placemaking that we get to do, the visioning about how we create neighborhoods and connect different spaces. And that's probably the thing I'm most excited about the Diamond District is that, 10 years down the road, this is going to be the kind of destination where people come every night of the week. And sometimes it's for baseball, sometimes it's for a concert, sometimes it's just for the restaurants in the park that are right there in the middle of the Diamond District. But people will live there and people will work there, and it will become this bustling node in our city. And so, that's the thing I'm most excited about.
Well, we are unfortunately out of time, but Mayor Avula, thank you so much for joining us.